This is the game called Does Gary Have a Story? Whenever you get into a conversation with my executive producer, Gary Dell'Abate, you quickly learn that he has a story for just about every topic. And John Blitt was in a car with Gary for about an hour. And Blitt, being the wise guy that he is, he brought up random topics just to see if Gary could somehow relate it back to himself. So this is the game. I'm going to give you a topic, and you tell me if Gary has a story about it. All right. The first subject is looms, like the machines for weaving. Does Gary have a story about looms?
I'm going to guess yes.
All right.
I just got my mom a quilt.
And did you buy it like at an antique store?
No, I made it.
With a loom?
Yeah.
So we have a really good friend who's got like a super high-end loom. She's been quilting for years. It's so funny. She made a really nice quilt. She took, when you have kids, you get all these stupid T-shirts for teams that you play for over the years. She made them all into a quilt.
Wow.
All right, here we go. Does Gary have a story about pet rocks?
Definitely.
All right, let's see if you're right.
Been getting my niece's pet rocks.
From where?
Just all over. You find them, when I travel and stuff.
You've been in a Tesla before, right?
Yeah.
No story about
He
pet
did
rocks.
not have a story.
Finally, a topic boring enough to bore Gary, and he brought up a Tesla immediately. And
Wow. I've never known Gary not to have a story. So that's what it is, what it's like when that happens.
next up in the big Gary, Does Gary Have a Story game is Tuna. 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 Did Gary tell John Blitt a story about tuna?
I gotta believe that Gary will have a story about tuna.
All right, let's go to the tape.
So there's this restaurant, Japanese place, where one of their dishes is tuna ribs.
Love tuna. I really started to get into it like later in life, and then I'll never forget my neighbor who lived across the street from me at the time.
Yeah.
He went fishing, and he knew that I loved sushi.
Yeah.
And he called me up and he goes, "Get over here right now."
Mm-hmm.
And he had a, I don't know, like an 80 or 90 pound tuna on his like kitchen island. And he just gave us little bowls of wasabi and soy sauce.
Yeah.
And he just cut it right off the fish.
Wow.
And people think that's disgusting. I was like, that's as good as it gets. I did an appearance at Bottle Rock with Morimoto. A bunch of people carried up a 600-pound tuna, and he filleted it right there, and it was something to be in the Guinness Book of Records for like filleting the largest tuna. Short version is we were just eating it right off the tuna.
By the way, I do want to mention that Gary is putting out a book of tuna anecdotes. So Gary and John are in the car, and John randomly brings up that he ate some butter when he was in Vermont. Did Gary have a story about butter? Robin, what do you think? Does Gary have a story about butter?
I've got to think that I know he's not had it. He didn't have a story about one thing we've mentioned today.
Pet rock.
I got to think there's another no somewhere. I'm going to say this is a no.
Just give me like Land O'Lakes, a breakstone in a tub. But I will tell you that my son, who's an amazing cook, he was over for Christmas, and he made 4 different kinds of butter. And it was great. He made like a garlic butter. He made 4 flavored butters. And we kept them around for a while. I really like that a lot.
Well, Gary did. Robin, Gary has a story about everything.
He came up with one. I think he was
sure
struggling for a moment.
Yeah. So John Blitt is riding in the car with Gary, and he brings up the topic of charcuterie boards.
Charcuterie boards.
Charcuterie boards. Did Gary tell a story about charcuterie boards?
I think he's going to have a story about this too because it's food.
Gary, I had the best charcuterie board the other night.
I make one every year for Christmas and for Thanksgiving. I call it the antipasto. So it's usually like 2 kinds of soppressata, like a hot and a regular, a little bit of pepperoni, some mozzarella cut up, some orecchio provolone, mushrooms, sun-dried tomatoes. And all of these are separate. All these are little separate things, so you can go with your little toothpick and pick away at them. That's my contribution every year to the holidays. I make that, and I make sure we have an abundance of shrimp.
I just got to say, like John goes, "Hey, I have a charcuterie board," and then Gary just doesn't even hear John's story. What happened to John's story?
No, he said charcuterie. I got a story.
Fascinating man, that Gary. I've been working with Gary like 40 years, and I still don't feel like I know him.